Major Lindsay and Africa presents Bouncing Back, conversations about resilience for lawyers.
Welcome to Bouncing Back, Resilience for Lawyers. This podcast is brought to you by Major Lindsay and Africa, the global leader in legal search and consulting. I'm your host, Rebecca Glatzer. I'm a partner in the Associate Practice Group at Major Lindsay and Africa. In this podcast, I speak to successful professionals about the hiccups, bumps, bruises, and setbacks they've experienced in their careers and personal lives, and how they ultimately bounce back from those experiences to thrive. Today, my guest is Effie Silva. Effie currently serves as the Senior Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary of Fresh Del Monte Produce, Inc., a $4.5 billion food company. In this role, Effie leads the company's legal, risk management, corporate governance, trade compliance, food safety, government affairs, and corporate reporting functions. Effie joined Fresh Del Monte Produce after a successful tenure as the ethics and compliance leader for Cargill. As the most senior compliance officer at Cargill's protein and salt division, she advised the board on major compliance matters and led a team that was responsible for identifying and mitigating risks and developing business-sensitive solutions to complex problems. Prior to joining Cargill, Effie was a vice president and associate general counsel at Tyson Foods. There, she was responsible for all legal matters impacting Tyson's $10 billion prepared foods business unit and the enterprise-wide sustainability department. In addition to her in-house experience, Effie practiced for 20 years at various global law firms, where she regularly advised corporate leaders and boards of directors on corporate governance, regulatory compliance and investigations, M&A, complex business litigation, and international arbitration matters. Effie is bilingual and has global experience across Latin America, APAC, and EMEA. She is board certified in international litigation and arbitration with the Florida Bar and has extensive cross-border experience advising and strategizing multi-jurisdictional disputes across the globe. Effie is a National Association of Corporate Directors certified director and a member of the Latino Corporate Directors Association. She earned her JD from the University of Florida Levin College of Law, where she currently serves on the board of directors, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in International Relations from Wellesley College. Effie, thank you for being my guest today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
Well, you told me in a prior conversation that at one point in your legal career while working at a firm, you were fairly certain and were getting signals that you were going to make partner, but unfortunately it didn't happen. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. So like a lot of associates out there, I was on track. I believe I was in my 8th year of practice, working really hard, exhausted, really focused on making partner. And just to give you a little background on me, I was a competitive collegiate athlete, and I think that's really baked into my DNA in terms of trying to achieve goals and trying to make partner in a law setting. So I had received signals from the administration that I was up for partner. I would be explaining to the board right at the law firm I was at, and in short, it didn't happen. And I think there was so much to learn from that, because it was a serious setback, at least at the time that I thought. But in my sort of later life, I've adopted this mentality of things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And I really do think that that experience of hitting a brick wall on making partner really happened for me. And it set the path for what was to come.
No, that's super helpful. And I was curious, if we can take you back to that moment. I'm hoping that it's a blur and it's hard to remember at this point, given all your subsequent successes. But then again, we tend to remember the getting smacked in the face more than the victories. I feel like that's a human.
Yes.
Take me back to that time. So you get the news. I assume a partner of some sort shares this with you. And What were you thinking in that moment? What was your, did you think it was a joke? Like, are you like, am I dreaming? What's happening here? I was curious where your mind went.
Yeah, my mind it was a total mystery as to why. I thought that I had checked off every box necessary. I thought that I had demonstrated my loyalty to the firm. I thought I had done all the right things, been on all the right cases, the complex cases, led, trial arbitration matters in an international and global scope. I had done all the right things that you would think would lead to a vote of yes. And when I was told the news, it really took me aback and more of a curiosity. And what does it take? What is it that I'm missing? And I think if I were to go back and counsel myself in that moment, I think what happens to most lawyers is that you internalize the process, right? Like as an athlete, it's like, what was I not good enough to make that goal or to make that basket happen? What was it in my technique, in my approach, in my networking, in the special secret sauce that wasn't good enough? And was I good enough? Right? I think you naturally question whether you're fit, to be a partner, to take it to the next level, because I don't know others' experience, but the law field, and especially in big law, it really breaks you down. You're stripped down to your core. You have to build up this sense of persistence and a skill set, and really hone in on the confidence and not those insecurities that really bubble up all throughout your career. And so I think that in that moment, if I were to go back, it was a little bit of a mix of mystery, anger, right? Like the natural anger.
Yep.
Yeah. How am I going to fix this? And then also the insatiable insecurity that comes with a no and a rejection.
Yes. Especially when it's something you want, right?
Yeah.
Like, that makes it even worse. If you didn't care, okay. But yeah, when it's something that you want so bad and you've been striving for pushing up on a decade, absolutely. So I was curious, so anger, giant question mark over your head. Did you solicit feedback? What were sort of the next, what happened next, after you sort of sitting there going, I don't know what happened?
Yeah. So I think, my next thought was really to have a reflection. I know, maybe that's not uncommon, or that's common, not uncommon, but I kind of took a moment to see, was it really partnership I was after? Because you have to start questioning, why you're doing things, why you're going after it, and to stay clear on that when you have a strategic approach. And I think when I went into that quiet reflection period after the point, which is, I'm competitive by nature, maybe to a fault. And so I needed to I really needed to question whether I was doing it for the sake of making partner, because it was something that, traditionally when you grow up, as a you go to law school and you get your foot in the door at big law or wherever law, the next step in the trajectory is, partnership, or that's what you think should be the next thing. And so I needed to sit with myself and become clear. And after doing that, I realized that it was a serious goal. And for me, I was at the point where I was able to start bringing in my own business. I really felt like I could be of value to the clients that I was serving, and that I was a change maker. And being a woman Hispanic, I don't have to tell you this, but the odds at that point in 2013, where less than 1% of Latinas made partner at law firms nationwide, whether big or small. So it was a daunting task, but there were others before me, and I really wanted it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes complete and total sense. And I think, it makes sense at that point to kind of press the pause button and figure out, is this really what I want? And then, now that you said you go through this exercise of what happened, do I really want this? You come to the conclusion, yes, I really want this. I was curious what happened next. Did you ultimately make partner at this firm, or did you have to shift a little bit and go elsewhere to hit that? Because you did eventually make partner. I'm bearing the lead here. You eventually made partner. So I was curious what that process looked like from getting sort of proverbially punched in the face, and what did the recovery look like, in an effort to make partner?
So the story went as, being in that situation, knowing that I was clear that I wanted to make partner and for the right reasons, I immediately started networking and looking for outside sources, because I thought maybe this is not the right fit. Maybe I'm not going to make it at this law firm, but maybe another law firm would consider me, or maybe I would be content with waiting to see if the law firm that I was at would consider me in the next round. So I came to that milestone where I thought, let me look outside of this law firm to see what my odds would be, to see how others, size me up, and whether I was partnership material maybe at another firm. And so I took, and you know what, in doing that, what happens is that it indirectly actually builds your confidence, because it forces you to tell your story and to tell your skill set to a new outside of the law firm that you grew up at, and sometimes that's a challenge, Rebecca, as I'm sure that growing up at the same place may not be the best. You may not be the best candidate for making partner, and sometimes you are.
I think that's a really good point. I think twofold. I'm going to tease you. I'm like, thank you for teeing this up for me, Effie. This is a beautiful plug for using a recruiter.
Yes.
I look at that. I would be remiss in not pointing that out. I think for the listening audience, one of the things to think about is like kind of knowing your worth in the market, right? Because you don't really know. Your head's down. You're busy like billing and getting clients and gaining new skills, and you often don't have the capacity, the time, the energy to know what your value is in the market. And I think it was really smart of you to kind of go, okay, well, if I'm not valued here, or I'm not valued here at this moment in time, what about other entities? Like, did they view me in the same way? Maybe I use that information to stay put, or, in the opposite, maybe I use this information to like go somewhere else where they're going to make me partner like off the bat. And that there's some value in that. And, getting some help to do it can also be useful, because it is a time consuming endeavor. It takes energy. It takes you away from, the things that you do to bill and to make money for the firm and yourself. So I think that's helpful. And I think too, you made another point that I want to put sort of a finer point on, which is that sometimes you're viewed in a certain way. I feel like this is what you were saying, and tell me if I'm correct. Like, you started a firm, you go through OCI, they know you as a like wet behind the ears, fledgling
totally
graduate. You're a baby to them, right? Like, and they kind of maybe always view you as a baby. Like, you're someone that sort of grew up under their tutelage, right? You're the mentee, and you always will be the mentee instead of the mentor. And sometimes there's value in kind of pressing the reset button and going somewhere else where you can sort of start standing on your own 2 feet and be more of a colleague and a peer instead of, the baby attorney who just graduated. Does that sound right for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that had I gone back in time, I probably would have done those checks with the outside market more frequently during my time there. I think I was there for about 9 years. And there is so much value in going out, and it's not so much like a validation of what like your worth, but I think it's also, it forces you to tell your story, you know?
Yes. Yes.
And to get
Yeah.
feedback on it. It's like trying out for a new team. Like you may be
Yes.
on the new, you may be like a certain player, like a fullback on the team that you're playing on, but then you go to a new team or you try out for a new team and they see your skill set as a striker or a forward or somebody that
Yes.
can lend value in a different team setting. And
exactly.
right. And I can tell you that like when you learn that from others, right? And you get that constructive feedback, even though it's outside of your current firm, it really helps in that mental like resiliency, because at a very insecure time in your life, just kind of reflecting on all your skill sets and all the work that has taken you to where you are can be really energizing, and help you sort of like build up again, challenging yourself for that like growth mindset that you're going to have, that you can get to there. You can get to that. Yes, you can get to be a partner. It's just managing it the right way.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. That's all wonderful advice. You mentioned, if you could go backwards, you might have tested the market a little bit more over the course of your tenure at that firm. Is there anything else, in reflecting backwards that you would have done differently at that time or leading up to that moment in time?
I think that one of the really important things to not to lose, which is really difficult to do when you're in the grind of it, you're a senior associate, you're working really hard, you're in the nose grind. But I think what's really important is the network that you have to create within the firm that you're at, and also in the outside community, right? You have to almost take everybody along on your journey, so that when you're at the moment where you can strike out and really, make that move for a partnership, it's not only folks in your firm know that, but also people in the market, your colleagues, and in that support network, you're also, trying to get access to challenging mentors that are challenging your constructs of how you're building what you think is the best case for making partner. Sometimes, not everything that you're thinking is the right way to make partner in your firm is really the most efficient and the smartest way about going through things. So I probably, looking back on it, would have created a more supportive outside network as well as internal network of stakeholders that could get to that yes. But that would have been very, very strategic and exhaustive. And I don't know, if I could have done it, but I think now looking back on it, it's probably one of those critical skill sets that,
yes,
to work on earlier.
Yeah, no, that makes I think you get a little myopic.
Yes.
As a hustling associate, you're busy billing, and doing what you think that you need in your own firm, and it's hard to kind of pick your head up and like look to your left and look to your right and sort of be strategic, as you said. Well, again, like I said, I buried the lead. You ultimately made partner at another firm, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
You moved to another firm. Did they bring you in as partner, or did you have to kind of prove your mettle as kind of a senior associate again in order to achieve that?
So I was very, very clear that I wouldn't move for anything other than partner at any new location, and I really believed it. Right. I thought to myself, I should have been partner at this firm, and I was dead set on being a partner anywhere I would move. And I also had a faith that I would be partner at the firm I was at. So an opportunity came along once I lifted my head and I went out and saw my skill set, and it was an absolute match. The new firm that I was discussing and speaking with was sort of like, of course you would come in as a partner, right? It was like a no-brainer. And that was so illuminating and made me feel so good. And it was like such a great start. And it was an ability to come into my own, get what I wanted. Little did I know at that point too, that, accepting partnership is just another sort of golden ring, or they say sometimes the golden handcuffs or the brass ring, where now you have a whole set of other challenges in making partnership. But it showed the resiliency and persistence in doing it,
Yeah, absolutely. And then I know, from your background, you ultimately were partner at another firm. So, it's like take that initial firm. I not only made partner, but I'm able to, I assume, take a book, create a book of business, a sustainable book of business, pick it up and move it elsewhere, which is another kind of like, take that, see what you get done. I don't know. That's where my head goes. Like, you guys,
Rebecca, come on. Yeah. It was an in-your-face moment for me. I mean, going back to my sports, right? It's like taking off, like in the sweat and dirt and tears and your face all smashed in. You're like getting up from the victory and cheering with the trophy. It definitely was that moment.
I'm bruised and battered, but darn it, I won. It reminds me of, of course, as a Beyonce fan, I have to insert this. She's like, best revenge is your paper, right? Like to do better than you did at the place where they said you're not, this is not for you. Which I think is great. Well, you also, speaking of wrongs and going to the next level, for many lawyers in big law and small law, going in house is like the penultimate, like, oh, this is what I've always been trying for. And you were able to make that transition, and I'm curious how that happened. Like, where were you mentally? When did you decide, to make this change, this pivot? And in many ways, if you've never done it before, I feel like going in-house for the first time is like hitting the reset button. I mean, you're sort of starting all over again, and you're kind of at the bottom of the pecking order.
Totally.
Your title is counsel, and there are people going into an entity where there are people who are much, much, much more experienced than you. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. How did you make this decision? How long did it take you to find your first in-house job? How did that become, a thing? How did you do that?
It's funny because I also associated with a lot of guilt, believe it or not, because after like hitting this like less than 1% of Latinas in big law, I was abandoning it. I mean, you can only be what you see, right? And I felt like I was letting down, in a very like myopic way. You just don't know who you influence at the right time in their career. But it really happened serendipitously in terms of in-house. I was living and working in Miami. I had been in Miami, Florida, my entire career, and really focused on international practice. And I never thought I would go in-house because one is Miami, unlike now, wasn't the center cornerstone of public companies or high industry other than tourism and private wealth. So it wasn't even in my thought. I was also a trial lawyer, right? So you think about all the different aspects of the challenge of going in-house, and you're right, like Rebecca, once I was very naive to it. I think that's another positive and qualitative factor. But my driving force, all throughout my legal career has been really, I've just been really clear on what's going to make me a better lawyer. And I thought at the time where I was presented the opportunity to go in-house is this going to make me a better lawyer, and better for my clients, better for, myself? Is it going to give me a different and creative way of thinking? And at about that time, I was like 17 years in private practice, very unorthodox to go in-house at that time, because think about all that you're giving up, right? Like you have just started generating a book of business for yourself, relying on yourself, really creating a network for yourself at whatever firm you're at, to continue to build on that. You would be letting go of clients. I mean, a lot of my partners around me thought I was absolutely insane. I was even, I'll never forget, I was told right to my face from a prominent partner, you're leaving where you're a big fish in a small pond to being a no one. You're going to be a no one when you land where you're landing. And I was so confused by that mentality or thought. I never thought about, I wasn't in it for that. I wasn't in it for being big or, I was in it just to be a better lawyer. And, I've got to say there was a kernel of truth in what he said, because when I went in-house, it really is a completely different sport. It's like, going from playing soccer to playing tennis or golf or something that's, different in rules and in how you conduct yourself. But I think more importantly than that is that you hit the reset button, like you said, Rebecca, earlier. You hit the reset button in terms of your networking, how you got to prove yourself, you got to adapt and really show your abilities in a different light. So it was one of the most challenging, and I was like, oh well, when I made the decision to do it, for like being a better lawyer, I thought I could fail, and you got to be willing to go into things with the risk of knowing you can fall flat in your face. And if you're that kind of person where you can kind of go into things with reckless abandon and knowing that you may come back whimpering back to your law firm, please make me partner again. I failed miserably doing this. If you can deal with the stink of that and that in your face, you should definitely go for it.
Yeah. And I think that's such a key point, right? There's this naivete about it, right? There's this sort of myth, if you will, in our industry that if you don't make partner, even if you do make partner, going in-house is this magical place, utopian place where just unicorns and rainbows and everything's perfect. Not true. These are entities made of humans, and my take on this is whenever something's made by people, there's always the possibility for complete, mess. We are imperfect beings. Therefore, what we do is 9 times out of 10 imperfect. And you talked about, this willingness to fall flat on your face, and I think there's a tension there, right? A lot of times when I'm talking to associates at the kind of senior level, I talk to them a lot about, you say you want to go in-house, tell me why. And then what's that going to look like? And, did you know that you're starting all over and you have this, you oftentimes have this kind of not very creative name, Counsel. What is that? It's like calling you attorney. You go from being a senior associate to a partner, the title goes down, the pay goes down, the prestige goes down.
Totally.
But to your point, it's an opportunity for growth to kind of change your mindset, to better understand how businesses are run and to stretch. And if, that's something that you're willing to do, going, eyes wide open, I know what I'm getting into, but I'm willing to take that risk. It definitely is worth it for those folks. And tell me a little bit about, you said it was serendipitous. Was it, somebody came calling and said, Effie, we're hiring. Are you interested? Want to come in-house? Or did it look different than that?
I went for to get business.
Okay.
And it turned into a different conversation and a really fantastic opportunity. So it was, in a sense, and I go back to this cornerstone, it's so critical to network. and not only network, but be willing to fail in both, in your networking. And, you know, in the back of my head, when I was considering, you know, the position, I was really excited about it. And I thought to myself, look, if I go in and I'm a miserable mess and it doesn't work out, or let's say I go in and I found myself so bored. I mean, you know, that can happen where you go in and it's really just not for you. It's not something that you cut out to be. Or I thought to myself, no matter what, I'll be a better lawyer for my clients because I'll see what it's like to work in the inside organs of a organization. So I think that, well, it happened in that sense. So, you know, back to networking, back to willing to, you know, I was on a pitch, right? Like you can fail on a pitch or you can knock it out of the park, or it can mold into something different. So it's taking that risk too, where, you know, you're hustling for business as a new partner. And then when the opportunity came is to really free yourself from the constraints of where you're at and to think about, why is this happening for you? Like, what is the opportunity in it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you make a really good point, which I tell, you know, associates, especially mid-level to senior ones, all the time. The activities that you would do to make partner, like going on pitches and meeting clients and expanding your network and getting to know people better, you know, all of those things kind of go into building your own sustainable book of business, but they're also the exact same. It's very synergistic. They're the exact same activities that you should be doing, right? If I understand you correctly, to go in-house, because most attorneys who go in-house actually do so through their own network or through clients or through, you know, friends of the firm, you know, who are looking for a good attorney to do X, Y, Z, P, Q. So, you know, finding the time to build a book of business and finding the time to go to network so that you could possibly maybe in the future go in-house are essentially the same thing. They do take time away from your billable activities, and they do take time away from family and other things, but they are essentially the same, two sides of the same coin, right?
You know, Rebecca, like you articulated it perfectly. I think that's the one thread that I've weaved all my career, is the value of networking and, you know, being authentic in your networking, right? Like the reason that you're reaching out to certain people at key points, it's because of this longevity in your career and that you're curious and you want to learn from them and be better at whatever craft you are. But, you know, I can tell you that being a partner in a law firm is a very lonely endeavor. It's built with insecurities. You're never given a book of business unless, you know, it's some like lightning in a bottle situation that you're in. So you're constantly
exceedingly rare.
Yeah, exceedingly rare. And those skills, you know, we call it networking, but really it's to get business. And you use the same persuasive techniques in your trial settings, in your discussions with people, in your negotiations, in your networking. It's the same thing. And there are touch points where you're reaffirming those skills through like your different experiences. Because what are we? We are a collective of our failures, right? That's the only way you're learning is through failure. So it's all those failures in my life, be it in a case, be it in a networking situation, being in not making partner, being in leaving the law firm, you know, whatever others would consider failure is what set me on the path that I'm on now. Yeah,
no, I think that's a great point. The wins are easy. It's the learning happens in the hiccups, in the mess ups, in the failures. Which kind of leads me, you know, to the theme of this podcast, which is resiliency. And you said something that I actually wrote down, which is something like, you have to be willing to fall flat on your face. And it's interesting, you know, that comment sort of sticks out to me for a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, I feel like law school in many ways sort of beat that out of me a little bit. You know, you take all these courses where you're learning how to be safe and how to mitigate risk and how to write in a certain way. I used to write poetry in like post law school. Like I don't even do it anymore because I'm like, how does one do that? Like I don't even know how to do that anymore because my brain turned into something that is a little more not creative and learning how to write in sort of legalese and legal speak. And so I talk to candidates all the time of various vintages, and we talk about, you know, potentially going in-house. And, you know, when I sort of inform them, I try to arm them with like information, like this is what you need to think about with regard to pay. If you have 12 cars and 14 children in private school, we need to talk about that because your pay is going to probably get reduced initially, right? It'll go back up again as you move up within an organization or you go to another company, but you need to be prepared for that setback. You're not going to get, you know, six-figure bonuses necessarily as a first-year counsel, depending on what you're bringing to the table. So we talk about that. We talk about the risk of leaving and what, you know, how hard or easy it might be to come back to a firm, depending on, again, their vintage and where they are in their career. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and not that it's my intent, but I end up like talking them out of it sometimes. You know, and other folks are like, yeah, I want more of that. Let's run towards it. But this willingness to fall flat on your face is not I don't think it's a innate human characteristic. I think most people are actually on the other side of that. And so I wanted to ask you, because it has served you well in your career. I mean, it served you well in making partner at 2 firms. It served you well in being in-house and now ultimately a GC of this massive, massive company, which most people have heard of. And if they haven't, they just need to go to the grocery store and walk up and down the aisle and see your little stickers. And so it's one of those things where I don't think that is something that everybody possesses, this willingness to fall flat on your face. And I wanted to ask you if you've given any thought to where your resiliency comes from. You know, is it something that was demonstrated to you? Is it just something that you acquired? Do you think it's innate? What has helped you become resilient?
I think it's really comes back down to, I'm going to dumb it down to my sports background, right? You know, having lost championships, I was a goalkeeper in college. I think
That's
it's, you
funny.
know,
I didn't know this about you. I was going to say, we're going to have to talk more about this another time. I was a goalie, not in college. So we'll discuss being a goalkeeper. I was like, that's where your resilience comes from, Effie. I know it. Anyway,
right.
Continue. I interrupted. Apologies. But yeah, being a goalkeeper in college.
Yeah, and I've got to talk to you about your getting back on the poetry chain because, you know, I'm also a creative too. I do. I was also a studio art major at Wellesley College, and I've also got to give a lot of credit to my college. I went to an all women's college, and you know, had the access to the best fields. It was Division III, not like a Division I school, but still, it supported, you know, female athletes and getting ahead. And so I think a lot of the ability to fall flat on my face has always been in my ambient. I think what the difference is, and I do see it, and I see it as, you know, in different people, how they react to it differently. But it's after you fall flat on your face and you have all the grass in your mouth and the blood and the tears is, you know, what is motivating you to get back up and to get scored on again? You know, what is it that is making you walk that for yourself and for others? And my motivation has always been like, you know, not letting my team down. And I think when I think of that, not letting my team down, it's really not letting the other Latina lawyers down. Right? Like everybody needs to look up or to see others like them. And, and even me, you know, I have a wealth of, women lawyers that have challenged me, you know, given me opportunities and also, you know, tested me and deemed, you know, that I failed in their eyes. And every one of those people have been a teacher. So I think the key is for that falling flat in your face is that realize that is happening for you. Like if you're not failing, you're not going to succeed. You're not going to get anywhere. And it's really the beauty of any successful like career or life is, is being able to endure it and getting and the satisfaction of it. I mean, the satisfaction that I made partner, the satisfaction that I'm a GC. I mean, I can't tell you how amazing that feeling is. To check off as a competitive, athlete in my background is, getting to the ultimate pinnacle. Obviously, I have more goals that I want to reach.
Yes.
But yeah, there's a definite satisfaction in knowing that failure is just going to make you like more animalistic and getting ahead.
I love it. I think that's great. I was going to say I could talk to you for 12 more hours, primarily about your art major and being a goalkeeper. I'm sure we could swap some very interesting stories.
Yes.
Because it is a very unique role. But for time, and to wrap this up for our listening audience, I want to ask you a final question. And it's a broad one, but I am interested in your thoughts. As you've alluded to, and I think all of us who are in it and went to law school and passed the bar, and whether you practiced or not, or even if you practiced for a little bit, know that the legal profession can be very rewarding and it can also be brutal and grueling at times. What advice do you have for newly minted attorneys who are trying to find their way in this profession?
We've all been there. I can tell you that I honestly, and this is going to be probably a sad comment for those just starting out, but I can tell you that where I saw some of my colleagues getting an immediate, not pleasure, but like they got immediate like feedback that their performance was like an ends to a means, like they were, they became partner like very early on, like 6th year, where, it took me a lot longer and those kind of things. Not until like recently, I would say, past the 17-year mark, where I was like, wow, this profession is amazing. Like, I really enjoy it. It's so versatile. It's so rewarding. I think that's the key word, is that at the beginning, when you're getting your teeth knocked out, there's no reward. I mean, you go home, you feel like an insecure loser. You can't do anything right. You can't even get a caption on a document right. You're misspelling words. You can't believe it. You don't know if you're even fit for it. It's much easier. You see your friends that are not in the legal profession having successful lives, being, making a lot of money, doing things that they seem to be rewarded for. And I've just got to say, like, stick with it, because there's a magical path that you will carve for yourself. And it may take longer than others, but it's going to be yours. And it's going to be the way that you did it. And there's nothing more prideful in knowing that you carved your own path in an authentic way to you, that you succeeded on. So really, it's stay positive, stick with it. It's going to bloom. It's just a matter of when and where, and that reward you will be able to at the end of life is to know that what you're doing is going to be influential on somebody younger than you. And so make it a point, to affirm what you're sticking it out with others that are coming up the line, and just keep beating that into them, that reward is really something magical.
That's great. I love that. Well, Effie, thank you so much for giving me your time and being so open and honest with me and our listeners today. I know that they will get a lot out of this conversation. I got a lot out of this conversation personally, and I sincerely appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. First of all, I'm humbled that you chose me to speak to. And I think we have a lot in common too, just from speaking about it. And it also provides me an opportunity to go back to like my essence, which is to help others out there in the profession, understand that you can be what you want to be. And it's just a matter of like sticking with it and getting by. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Bouncing Back, Resilience for Lawyers. Join us next time for another story about thriving after overcoming challenges. You can find Bouncing Back and other programming for lawyers on MLA's Legal Talk Network.